welcome back to the rotoPros pre-lock MLB show for Wednesday, April 11th, 2018. And we have a 7-game slate, early slate for us to cover. And we have a lot of tough decisions to make, both in the pitchers and hitters. So, Matt, what do you like at pitching so far with what you see?
To start, I don't really love this slate, but we don't have all the lineups yet. So I guess there are things that could change, like the Diamondbacks and Giants played a late game last night. And once we see their lineups, maybe some stuff changes. Maybe it's an easier matchup for Robbie Ray. I think there's a chance that Robbie Ray becomes my favorite pitcher. As of now, the only pitcher that I really like, and it's a strange choice, the only guy I like for his price is Yonny Chirinos on the Rays. He may only pitch 4 or 5 innings because this is kind of a bullpen day that the Rays have been doing. Every 5th day, they use just a couple of relievers to get them through the game. Chirinos has thrown 110 pitches over 2 appearances. One was a start. One, he was the second guy in line for the bullpen day. But he's only 4,500. It's an easy matchup against the White Sox. They strike out a lot. They're bad at offense. They're especially bad at offense against righties. Even with the wind blowing out, I think Chirinos should do okay against them. He's not really much of a strikeout pitcher, but he has really good control. He doesn't walk anybody. This was true throughout the minors. So I think he should put up double-digit fantasy points, even if he pitches 4 innings. If he gets like 4 strikeouts and gives up 1 run, I mean, it's not the worst result in the world. And if he can get 5 innings and get the win bonus, then he's paid off his salary quite a bit. So I think he's the best of bad choices from the low-priced guys. And on the high end, I think we're looking at a couple guys who are just fairly priced, pending the Giants lineup and Robbie Ray. So is that similar direction to you, or where are you looking for pitching?
Yeah, my first take was to deep dive down to the bottom of the pitchers, because there are a couple, or there's one expensive offense. Obviously, it's Colorado's that we want to use against Luis Perdomo. So Yonny Chirinos was a guy that I looked at. 4.5K seems way too cheap. He only needs about 8 to 9 DraftKings points to return some sort of value for the lineups. So he caught my eye. And then the next guy that I like from the high guys was Lance McCullers. The Twins don't have Miguel Sano today. There is a slight draft blowing inwards towards third base, and I think McCullers makes the most sense at his price when you take into factor the wind blowing outwards in Kansas City at 20 miles per hour and the Giants' recent success. I just think they're a much better team against left-handers, and they will continue to improve. And Robbie Ray has not looked good to start the season, and 12.4 seems a bit of a ridiculous price to pay for Robbie Ray.
He did pitch well against the Cardinals last game, though. Overall, his numbers are only okay because he was bad against the Rockies, but he's gotten a ton of strikeouts. Let me just pull up his numbers really quick. I mean, McCullers, I think, has strike early, like in the early portion of this year. I would expect that to move in Ray's direction just based on what their numbers were last year. But both guys should get a lot of strikeouts. Actually, I don't even think McCullers does have more strikeouts this year. Ray is averaging 13.9 per 9 innings. McCullers is around 14. They're close, and it's potentially an easier matchup for Ray. I guess it depends what the Giants' starting lineup looks like. So I don't know. It's hard to decide for me between those two. Like, it's an easier park for Robbie Ray. He's in San Francisco. The Giants don't strike out a lot, but that also, it depends which guys are playing. Like, this could be a day off for Buster Posey, could be a day off for Evan Longoria, maybe Andrew McCutchen. Their game ended, I think it was 1 o'clock or 1:30 Eastern time last night, and they're playing an afternoon game. So I don't know. Hopefully that lineup comes out soon and we can make our decision. But I think McCullers, Ray, and James Paxton are all in play. And I don't really know how you decide between these guys. Paxton is probably the weakest of the 3 choices. He also has the easiest matchup because even though the wind is blowing out, Kansas City is is a pitcher's park. So maybe it becomes more of a neutral park with the wind blowing out so heavily. And the Royals offense is just bad. And Paxton, I think, maybe as good as McCullers and Robbie Ray. He probably is on the same level of pitcher. If we look at the Vegas lines for the implied run totals, the lowest of the three teams is the Twins, but they're all close. And just double checking that. Well, actually, the Royals have gone way up. I guess the over-under in this game is going through the roof because of the wind. That's a little strange. And also, I would think that favors the Mariners side, the wind, because they're going to put more balls in play than the Royals because James Paxton is better at striking guys out than Danny Duffy. Yeah, the wind is definitely a concern, though. So I think Paxton is upside, but he's riskier than McCullers and Ray. Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, your audio is pretty choppy, so I'm like catching every like half sentence of what you're trying to say. But
yeah,
I think
it's so I've been told. Even when the audio is choppy and we can't hear each other that well, it comes through on YouTube fine. So I guess it ends up being okay.
Well, I think you said James Paxton is the riskiest of the three. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think he has potentially more upside than anyone, and he's the cheapest, but he's also the riskiest.
Yeah, I would have to agree. If the sharp money indicates that the over is going through the roof and the Royals implied total is raising because of this 20-mile-per-hour winds that are going straight out to center, then Paxton definitely makes for a risky play, even with as bad as the Royals lineup is. I'm having trouble gauging ownership on these three guys. What do you still think Paxton carries the highest ownership because of the matchup?
I think it's McCullers because of the implied run total. I think a lot of people just look at Vegas lines for pitching choices. Robbie Ray's allowing runs to start the year, even though he's getting the strikeouts. He's allowed a decent amount of runs. I think McCullers will be the highest owned pitcher, but I think it could be pretty spread out because all of these guys, I mean, they're all pretty similar quality pitchers, all strikeout pitchers. So it should be pretty spread out. One thing, well, I'm not going to have Yanni Chirinos in every lineup. I think that's a little bit silly. So I think you could use two of the top three and use a cheaper offense. But I think these are the only four pitchers that I'm even potentially targeting. Is there anyone else to mention? Because I don't see anyone else that's worth considering.
I definitely agree with you. I was going to ask you, what your current or prospective lineup, construction strategy would build, but I guess you answered it. So how comfortable are you using Chirinos? I'm assuming only in red Rocky stacks, which I would guess would be about 25% of your lineups.
I mean, I think I'd use him more. There are other offenses that are expensive, and then also I'm not opposed to the idea of a cheap offense with expensive plugs. So I don't know. Chirinos could be in close to half of my lineups. I mean, just to go through these other pitching choices, McCarthy, 6,600, I think that's okay, but he doesn't really get strikeouts, and there's a lot of risk there. It's a tough matchup at Washington, so I don't really see the upside for him, but also the floor is pretty low for him. I think you could say the exact same thing about Kyle Gibson, who has been better at limiting hard contact since the second half of last year. He pitched well down the stretch, but his strikeout and walk numbers to start the season aren't very good. It's a hard matchup for him against the Astros. I think Gibson could do okay, but 7,100 for him in a tough matchup, that's not very appealing. AJ Cole is really bad. Junior Guerra is really bad. Adam Wainwright, 6,300. He's bad. Not even going to say anything about James Shields. Danny Duffy's velocity's been down. I think that could be a semi-popular pick. 6,900 for him against a Mariners offense that is good, and the wind is blowing out there. Like we said, I don't have any interest in Duffy. Herman Marquez is okay, but that's a Coors game. I'd rather just use Chirinos. I don't have interest in Marquez at 6,100 pitching at home. And then Perdomo in the Coors game too, no interest. Suarez on the Giants, not good at all. And that could be like a bullpen day for them too. He's usually a reliever for them. So it's really just Robbie Ray, James Paxton, Lance McCullers, and Yanni Chirinos. I think the only other guy that I would even maybe consider using is Kyle Gibson, but I'm not going there. I don't think I think people might use him, but it's really just going to be those four guys. As far as exposure, I mean, maybe have them 50% each, to make up the 2 pitching spots, but I'm not sure yet. And I think it'll be a little more clear once we see what the Giants lineup is.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move to offenses. There's one expensive stack that I think or a couple expensive stacks that we like, and then there's 2 definitely cheap stacks that work well with the 2 expensive pitchers. And the 2 cheap stacks that we have our eyes on are the Rays and the Cardinals. James Shield is just awful. He's someone we've been targeting against, for a couple or 1 year now, but about to be 2. And the Rays, their most expensive hitter is Matt Duffy at 3.3K, which is just insanely too cheap for, anyone against James Shield. So you can easily stack this offense 1 through 5 with either, 2 of the 3 top guys we mentioned. Same with the Cardinals. They are running a more left-handed heavy lineup against Junior Guerra, who has insane splits against left-handers. Greg Garcia and Colton Wong are in the lineup hitting. Greg is hitting first and Colton's hitting 6. Both of them cost 2.8K. And their most expensive hitter is Marcell Ozuna at 3.9K. Are these 2 offenses you're considering today?
Well, I don't know if I really like the Cardinals. Like they don't have a lot of good players in their lineup. Greg Garcia and Colton Wong are just kind of light hitting utility infielders. Junior Guerra also might not pitch for very long. This could be one of the days that we see Josh Hader pitch a bunch of innings. But I do like the Cardinals. Guerra's bad, and maybe the Cardinals get a lead, and they see the weaker portion of the Brewers' bullpen, and the wind is blowing out there. So I don't not like the Cardinals, but I won't say that I have them anywhere near where I have the Rays. The Rays are all basically mid-price. Like, they're all 3,000 or less. Duffy's 3,300, but he's not in the first 5 guys in the order anyway, so I'd have lower exposure to him than Span, Kiermaier, Gomez, Cron, and Wendell. James Shields literally has 1 strikeout this season in 2 starts, and he only has 2 walks, so it looks like what he's doing is just making more of a conscious effort to throw strikes, and that's led to some very hard contact, bad results. He's going to give up a lot of home runs. The wind actually is blowing out a little bit to left field in Chicago. Shields is probably the worst pitcher in baseball, and you can get an offense against him where the aggregate price of the first 5 hitters is $14,200. I mean, that does not happen very often. So I think the Rays are without a doubt the best value. I think the Cardinals are decent, but I think for me, it's not even close. It's the Rays, and I probably will have Rays stacks that include Paxton and Robbie Ray, Paxton and McCullers and Robbie Ray. This is the best spot for me, so I'm fine with mixing pitchers around them. Like, I think other offenses should do well, but I don't think the value for any of them comes close to what the Rays are for their prices, even though these hitters aren't even particularly good just because of how bad James Shields is. And then the White Sox bullpen is really bad too, which you can't say really the same thing about the Brewers. I mean, their bullpen isn't great, but if Josh Hader pitches, then their bullpen's awesome. It's very dependent on one guy. The White Sox don't have any good pitchers in their bullpen. So for me, it's Rays number 1 in terms of exposure. And then I think there are a few other teams that are kind of on par with the Cardinals for how much I'll use them. So both sides of the Coors game are worth looking at. The Padres are still cheap. For the Rockies, you're going to have to pay up, and you're going to have to use Yanni Chirinos probably in those lineups. I think it is maybe worth having German Marquez in 1 or 2 Rockies stacks for the correlation. And he is facing the Padres. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get Marquez in a lineup or 2. But the Rockies make sense. I guess we'll find out if Blackman's playing too. Because do we have a Rockies lineup yet? Have you seen that? Because I don't think we're seeing one.
No, we don't have a Rockies lineup yet. Blackman still did. He was scratched yesterday as well. No, so
right.
What is it? Yeah. If Blackman isn't at the top of the lineup, are you less inclined to use the Rockies?
Yeah, I think I definitely like Carlos Gonzalez as a plug at 4,500. We'll see where Gerardo Parra's batting. He's only 3,500. So if he's in the lineup at all, I like him as a plug. But yeah, the Rockies are just expensive. So I don't know. If Blackman's not in there, it really does lower the expected output for the whole team. And I guess like I've said the last couple of days, the Padres bullpen is very good. They shut out the Rockies yesterday over the 4 innings that they were in for. I think it was 3 innings that they were in for. So it's not quite as good of a matchup as it seems. The Padres are a bad team, but their bullpen is the strength of the team. If Perdomo doesn't pitch for very long, it's not like the Rockies are facing bad relievers. It's not the same boost that the Rays or even the Cardinals get. The Padres have a lot of good pitchers in their bullpen. Looking at the Vegas line, though, the over-under is almost up to 12. I mean, it's Coors, so I don't know. I really don't like when Coors is on the slate because it's so random. But yeah, I think having some exposure to that game makes sense. I don't want to have a ton because I like the cheaper offenses and the expensive pitchers more. But for other offenses, I mean, there are other teams in good spots too. We mentioned the Wind in Kansas City. The Mariners are a good offense. I don't think Danny Duffy is very good. So Mitch Haniger's cheap. Gene Segura's cheap. But I even think Seattle lefties are fine. And then they've got some cheap righties at the bottom of their order too. So I think the Mariners are worth using. And then I think the Braves are worth using against AJ Cole, who's really bad. So how would you rank the rest of the offenses? Like, to me, it seems like the Rays should be the primary target, and then I'm just mixing around the rest of these teams.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I'm going to go Rays in the majority of my lineups. I also like the Astros. You don't have any interest in picking on Kyle Gibson?
No, I do. This is what makes this slate so tough because almost every team is in a good spot. Like Kyle Gibson, I still think is bad, even if he's a little less bad now. But the Astros are not that expensive, and they have really good hitters. I think I'm only mildly interested, though. It's cold in Minnesota. The wind is blowing in a little bit. It's not the same park boost that other teams have. But I do think the Astros will definitely have low ownership. It's just their prices seem kind of fair. Like there's a huge amount of upside because they're just really good. The Twins are bad. Gibson's bad. The Twins bullpen's bad. But the floor is a little bit low too. Like I just don't think the expected output is high enough to use too much of them. Like if you ask me who's going to score more runs today, the Astros or the Rays, I would say the Rays. And Tampa their prices are like half of what Houston's are. So for that reason, I'm going to be lighter on the Astros, but I don't hate the pick.
Makes sense. Yeah, the Astros I was just having in line with, the Braves, the Astros, and some of the Mariners righties. But, I also think you can, if in lineups that you don't have Paxton with, using guys like Whit Merrifield, Cuthbert as cheap plugs makes, some sense too.
Merrifield at least because he can get on base and steal. Like, yeah, I guess Cuthbert's okay, but I don't definitely no interest in the Royals as a stack because of the lefties in there, and Paxton's just really good. Yeah, I think Royals righties are okay to use. The Diamondbacks are definitely not going to have any ownership, but I don't really like them. Their prices are a little high. Maybe the ownership in the Coors game is down if the lineup doesn't come out so close to lock. But yeah, this is a difficult slate. Like it's hard to have conviction because we've got 3 good expensive pitching choices that are just only kind of good, 1 cheap one that it's hard to be too confident in, and then we've got so many offenses that are worth using. So I don't think it's easy to have a narrow focus, but the one spot that I feel very confident about is that the Rays should do well against James Shields because James Shields is just the worst.
So how many Rays stacks would you make are you anticipating making today?
I think it'll be about half my lineups. I think that's reasonable. It could be more, honestly, but I do want to have exposure to the other teams. I think there is upside for a lot of them. But yeah, Rays in half, maybe a little more than half.
Got it. Is there anything else we should touch on?
No. I guess we got to go make lineups, right? It's 11:45. If anyone has questions, feel free to ask, but I think that just about does it.
Yeah. Will we be doing one of these for the later slate?
Let's see.
I think we have, for free.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back. I guess we'll be back for round 2 later today.
Check back in at 4:30, and we will be back here to cover the main slate. Hope everyone's a good day, and see you later.